giving him that setup, he's going to give you a great presentation on his product called Overwatch. So without further ado, I introduce Josh Moody.
Thank you. Alrighty, so my presentation today is over a product that may be targeted towards a little bit younger crowd, but I'll explain and we'll see if we can get through it. Okay? No, hold on. Okay. So if you're familiar with all the recent type of entertainment applications, such as the Xbox and the Nintendo Wii and the PlayStation, all of these gamers are trying to get more involved in this type of gameplay. They're trying to get physically involved in this digital type of realm. They're using their body to move the controller and move players on the screen. But the problem with that is that it's still pretty expensive. It's still relatively expensive. And the technology is limited by how much money you're willing to spend and also by your ability to adapt to the awkwardness of trying to move to sensors to play. But there's a section of gaming, namely the combat video game section, the Call of Duty players, who are actually finding ways to create the most interactive experience they can have in real life. And that would be through going out and playing paintball or airsoft or laser tag. And this is players going out with replica weapons. They're shooting plastic BBs at each other, or paintballs if you're familiar, and they're having this real tactical experience in real life. But there's a gap between the actual physical gameplay and what they're seeing in these video games. These video games have incredible features, and there's no connection between the two. They're attempting to create these sort of realities of this tactical experience, and there's nothing there. And so we developed Overwatch, which bridges the gap between those two industries, bringing combat video game features into the real world to fully immerse gamers in this real tactical type of gameplay. And I'll tell you what that means. So, using the Overwatch app, it starts on your smartphone, a device everybody has, very low cost of entry here. The app is actually free for download. And what we start with here is a remote GPS screen. And while you're playing on the app, you can actually see the physical location of every single player on the gaming field. So it's exactly like a radar in combat video games. You can track teammates and opponents throughout the match. And it really eliminates some of this fog of war when you're playing paintball or airsoft, and you're allowed to be connected to this field of game. So we also have voice chat, which is vital during these types of scenarios because you have to stay in contact with your teammates at all times. It's the same thing with actual combat. You're always trying to stay in communication with your friendlies. We also have in-game perks and unlocks, and those are additional features during gameplay that are taken straight from combat video games. So we're effectively communicating exactly the point that this is combat video games in real life. You're able to jam enemy radar or listen in on enemy communication lines, all by activating a perk, and these are our in-app purchases throughout the game. So while you're physically on the field, you can click a button and you can listen in on enemy communication lines or jam radar or even remove yourself from the opponent's radar discreetly. But we're also incorporating game modes, stats and user profiles, an Android app so everybody with a smartphone can play, and an online community. So we're creating this ecosystem, this environment of gameplay that combines the industries of physical gameplay, this is paintball and airsoft, and also digital gaming as well, which is a $70.4 billion industry. How we incorporate is also incredibly important here. But actually, there's another feature to the Overwatch app before I move on, and that's Command Center. So this is where the app really reaches everyone. So if a friend is trying to get out and play a physical type of game with his buddies, or maybe it's an adult who doesn't quite care to go out in the 95-degree weather and play paintball or airsoft, from a remote location, that single player can actually operate through Command Center and control that chaos on the field. They can see the location of everybody on that field just as if they were there, but from anywhere in the world. They can communicate with everybody on their team, and they can even dish out perks and unlocks to their teammates remotely to give their teammates the advantage. So let's imagine one of a friend group's friends has broken his leg, or he can't get out. Maybe he's just not physically capable of doing so, where typically you would be left out in a physical type of gameplay when all your friends are taking this video game experience out into real life. They'd be left behind. But using Command Center, they can actually fully immerse themselves in that gameplay from anywhere in the world. And this is actually features that are incorporated in video games today that really involve everyone. So how we incorporate here, we've designed two pieces of hardware to bring that smartphone right into your field of vision while you're playing paintball or airsoft. And so we have a rail mount here that attaches to any airsoft gun with a rail system or paintball gun, anything with that universal rail on it. And we also have an armband mount for smaller weapons or guns without rails. And these are incredibly low-cost solutions. So the cost of entry here is under $30 when you want to start playing this game, which is half the cost of a brand new video game. So the armband mount, we're looking at having about $9 as the cost on that, and the rail mount is going to be around $25. Existing competition today, there are only really two main applications here, and this is Paintball Commander that you see here. There's Paintball Commander and BattleTech. And Paintball Commander, it's the user interface is incredibly dull, and actually all of these attempted applications have kind of missed the mark. They've been independently developed by just kind of a homebrew developer, and they focus on maybe one feature, whether that be GPS tracking or maybe communication. And Overwatch combines every feature, every vital feature from these attempted apps and those directly from combat video games to create this fully immersive experience. And this is incredibly important because this industry that we're targeting has over 700 million players of combat video games. It's a $70.4 billion industry with $19.1 billion spent purely on the purchase of combat video games every year. And that's titles like Call of Duty and Battlefield. They're just blowing sales numbers out of the water every time they release a brand new video game. And we found that with every new release, the search interest of airsoft particularly just explodes. And this is over 25 million airsoft, paintball, and laser tag players as well. So it's a massive industry here. How we reach these customers, this unique market, is very interesting because no one has ever done it on this large of a scale before. We're essentially creating a brand new product for a brand new mixed industry between digital and physical gamers. We actually partnered with the largest airsoft manufacturer in the world. We caught their attention very early on while we were still in the ARC Challenge, and they decided to partner with us. They have access to over 9,000 retail storefronts worldwide, including all of the major online airsoft stores, and they've already agreed that as soon as Overwatch is ready, by the beginning of next year, we'll be on the retail store shelves of Academy, Cabela's, and maybe a little store you've heard of called Walmart. So we're looking to reach them in a big way, And they're incredibly vital for us because we do software. We know software. And they know hardware. They've done hardware for a very long time, and that's why they're the biggest and the best in the airsoft industry. They're handling all of the inventory. They're dealing with all the shipping. They have all the connections to these stores, and they're giving that all to us because they believe in the product and they realize its potential. We have additional opportunities as well, though. So Overwatch is just the beginning. It's the most complex version of the software we intend to develop, so bringing it into other industries will be incredibly easy. We'll be removing features and changing up the user interface, and that'll allow us to put it into SWAT and military applications. So safety training. Police officers and SWAT trainers today actually use airsoft guns, their plastic BB weapons, to train their soldiers, their local police force. And it's incredibly vital to be able to create certain scenarios during this training so that officers are properly trained. There's also a safety application here during these types of events where a SWAT team would be called. You need to know exactly where each of your members is, just to make sure that nobody is in any crossfire, nobody is in any immediate danger, and you're trying to keep everyone safe. So with Overwatch, actually that would be changed. We're using the location tracking purely on that, and the voice communication, you would be able to see the physical location of every single SWAT member to ensure that nobody is in a dangerous situation or a more dangerous situation than they already are. It's also a military application as well, so we could work with that military training as well. But sticking to Overwatch, the additional opportunities here, we have licensed gaming locations because there's been no innovation in paintball and airsoft in over a decade. And so by bringing this, we'll offer new features to these players who are going out to paintball fields and laser tag facilities and airsoft as well, that's going to entice these paintball locations to want to promote Overwatch and bring Overwatch on as an exclusive product of theirs to offer to customers. Also, experiential entertainment. So that is people arriving at locations and they're playing through an actual storyline in real life. The largest investment made on Shark Tank to date was experiential entertainment, and this was essentially a haunted house on steroids. So you would run through this type of environment, and they would create more than just a scary experience. They would create a storyline, and you would play through that, and you would solve problems, and you would have to create this sort of problem-solving atmosphere among your friends just so you could make it through this type of haunted scenario. And so doing that, you could actually play a military situation against a staged opponent, and you would create this very, very cool experience. So Overwatch is bridging this gap between digital and physical gaming, where we're bringing the features directly from combat video games to create this truly immersive experience with a very affordable cost of entry. That's Overwatch. Thank you.
Good job, Josh. So who has the first question? I know there's probably a lot of them. All right, Lou, I think your hand is first.
Lou McAllister. Josh, I guess it's got kind of a two-part question. Do you anticipate moving this off of an app and making it cloud-based? And what about physical interface, something like Google Glass or Oculus?
Okay, so the first question, this was, do we intend to move it away from an application and more of a cloud-based type of scenario? And in this, the application is really more of just the user interface at its core. So everything as far as the data tracking, the communication, everything is developed on the back end. So this is just that front-facing interface where you're clicking through it. All of the data tracking, all of the voice commands and everything sent through the app is through a server in the back end, and we actually intend to make a web version as well, because we're currently not covering the Windows Phone. While we're covering Android and iPhone, that's 90% of all phone users. There's still going to be a certain number who are left out, and we'll be trying to incorporate this web interface, so even if someone wants to access this on the computer, they can use like Command Center on the computer. And your second question was involving using these physical type of interactions such as a heads-up display, Google Glass, and others. We actually just received a ruggedized heads-up display, and we absolutely intend to incorporate that. That's really where this needs to go. The problem is the cost is still relatively high, and when we're trying to bring in just a community to begin with, which is why we're making the app free and the cost of entry very low, that type of application isn't immediately there. We have to wait for that industry to grow a little bit. And I think we can also accelerate that just because everybody who has seen this sees this immediate application for a heads-up display, and particularly in the police force use, that would be very, very helpful. Did that answer your question? Okay, additional questions? Yes? Thank you. So right now, nothing is for sale. What we have the app that we're submitting this week to the iOS App Store, and that will be available for download. And within the next 2 months, we'll be selling the armband mounts. Unfortunately, the lead time on the hardware mount is about 4 months. So we're hoping to be in retail stores or at least sold online by November, December of this year. But the iOS app will be available for testing, and then the Android will shortly follow. We don't have a release date on that yet, but we're submitting the iOS app this week, and within the next 2 weeks, you'll be able to download it, check it out, see what it's like, and we'll be promoting that on our Facebook page and elsewhere. Right. Right. So the question was about if we're thinking of developing a sister company to have a purely a military side as opposed to mixing the marketing between a video game and a military use. And that's actually exactly how we've structured this. So the company is called Innovis Labs. That's the company I founded with my co-founders. And the product, our flagship product, is Overwatch. And because of our presence in these startup environments, we realized very early on that saying we were Innovis Labs doing Overwatch didn't make much sense. It tended to confuse people. They couldn't remember which name, and so we decided to focus on just promoting purely Overwatch as a product/company, while in reality we're actually planning to move this into other areas without mixing any type of marketing and separating the user interface and such. Yes?
Another question. So how do you manage connectivity on the devices? Not everybody does Wi-Fi, not everybody.
Correct. So the question was about the data management. How does somebody connect to this? Because not everyone has 4G, not everyone has the highest, fastest speeds of data connection. So across all of these platforms, it does use data. So that's how everything is put together. We have, whether it be a 3G, 4G connection, LTE, Wi-Fi, and we're actually working to be creating type of ad hoc networks for these paintball locations. So typically paintball locations are in the middle of nowhere. So because we're looking to do this licensing opportunity, we'll be able to supply Wi-Fi routers and help them actually set up a network so that they can have everybody connected. And we're currently working on doing this ad hoc type of network that includes both Wi-Fi and Bluetooth for incredibly accurate GPS. So, yes?
So I think there's a number of entrepreneurs here, so you have a lot of data as the number of users, the number of game players, and things like that. I think it'd be instructive to hear how you went about finding that and developing that data so you can target what you're trying to do.
Right. So the question was about how we're targeting this market, because he's asking about how we found that data, how we went about determining our target market here. And that was incredibly difficult early on when it came to the physical gaming side, because those numbers are incredibly skewed, and they're not tracked, nothing like the gaming that is involved digitally with, Microsoft is tracking that through their Xbox, and Sony through the PlayStation, and Nintendo is doing that through the Wii. And they're able to tell exactly when gamers are playing, exactly what game they're playing, and the hardware that they're using. But when it comes to physical gameplay, no one is tracking the gun that's being used. No one is tracking when they're playing. They're independent locations that aren't even trying to track this data. They're just trying to bring customers in. And so the numbers early on when it came to determining the number of players of paintball, airsoft, and laser tag was incredibly difficult. We had to search different levels of Google Analytics that were finding search results, and that's how we found the spike in airsoft searches as soon as a Call of Duty was released. And there are quite a few numbers on paintball, but as far as airsoft and laser tag, airsoft being relatively young as far as a breakout type of industry, and laser tag just really being maintained as a location, a purely single location type of opportunity. The numbers are very difficult there. But we were able to combine those through Google Analytics searches, searches just across the web of different sources and resources that have been able to collect this data slowly and bring it together. But the physical side of that was very difficult, and how we target that is still something that we're working on, because we haven't reached the market yet. We haven't had a chance to do A/B testing and really figure out how to pinpoint that. Yes.
That presentation for Calicut guy.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Three here. Joe Calhoun, Holsey Calhoun. Are you seeking outside funding? And if so, what sort of intellectual property strategy do you have to kind of secure your position in the market?
Okay, so the question was, are we pursuing outside funding, and how are we securing our IP here? So yes, we are currently pursuing outside funding. We're looking for around a total of 300,000. We actually already have 75 that is committed. So the total remaining is 225. And we're open to equity and convertible debt conversations. Because we haven't had sales, we understand that it's very, very difficult to do an equity deal there, but we're completely open to speaking with anyone who's interested. In regards to the IP, the hardware is where we're currently pursuing a patent. No one has done that there. No one has had this specific application for this, and our design is brand new. We haven't taken any hardware that's existed out there. There are some applications today that involve holding a smartphone on a rifle or doing some form of a mounting system. They're not typically rail systems, and the ones that do exist today are focused not on an inexpensive product or one that is purely rugged in its design. It's really intended to be a pretty fine type of product that is just intended to delicately hold the device on top or on the side of it to use it as a scope, which we found very interesting. We're trying to keep users' eyes away from the screen at all times because we're not trying to distract from that experience. We're just trying to add to it. And so by playing through it as a scope, that application didn't quite fit here. So we decided to design our own hardware, and we're working on the patent for that right now as the designs have been finalized. And software is incredibly difficult to patent, so we're trying to figure out something there, but we've already trademarked Overwatch, and we're protecting ourselves as a brand. Yes? We haven't spoken with a local airsoft location yet, and I've been looking for those, and thank you for pointing that out because I'll know some guys to contact to get in touch with them. But we have been in contact with several. Okay, thank you. I'll if I can get a number from you, that would be great, and I'd be able to contact them and see exactly where they play. What you can do is yes. Here's what you have to do. You have to log in as a command center user, and then you're actually going to voice them in. You're going to use your Bluetooth headset. You can send them an alert, and it actually pinpoints your location. So you'll. Yes. Thank you. So the biggest challenge, I would say, was the balance, at least personally for me, the balance between that high school type of schedule and this startup schedule. When I first started this, I talked to Mr. Stracely, the principal at Catholic, at the end of my junior year, and I said, if I'm accepted into this, it may mean that I miss a couple weeks of the beginning of next year. And he said, that's fine. I really support what you're doing, and I'm willing to work with you. Now, that being said, homework was still due on the days that it was due. So I would have pitch presentations in front of a couple hundred people, and then that night I would turn in my calculus homework via email. So that was tough very early on. And then as I transitioned from working full time on this all summer, I would wake up at 8 a.m. and go to bed at 1 a.m. every night. Full time, I was thrown into it, and I loved every second of it. I found that this was my passion, and I really wanted to grow this, and that was my driving force. And as I transitioned from this full time, every single day working on it, I loved it, to sitting in study hall and having 50-minute periods and realizing how inefficient this schedule was, it drove me nuts. And so it was difficult. It was a difficult senior year as I tried to balance between my schoolwork and my business. It's something that I really had a passion for, and something that I just had to get through so I could work on what I truly loved. And I think that was the biggest personal challenge for me. And it's difficult, but it's doable. And so I've been talking to local entrepreneurs who are around my age and encouraging them, just because I was incredibly lucky in my circumstances that gave me the opportunity to be able to do this. And the least I can do is help someone out who is around my age, who has just the same level of passion and a dream that was as big as mine was. So I very much understand where they're coming from. But that was the biggest personal challenge for me.
Time for one more question.
I saw she was waiting in the back first. Yes.
My name is Zach Cole. My name is Zach Cole. I'm from Bryant. I'm actually part of the paintball airsoft facility that is down there. As we've heard about your app, we became very interested. I know some of our customers have also been interested, has actually contacted you over the last couple of weeks talking about it. And we are very interested in helping test the app and whether you can help develop it.
Thank you. Thank you. That'd be great. I'll speak with you after this.
All right. Any last questions?
Yes. Yes.
Sort of curious, how does it register codes?
So that was an interesting challenge early on that we faced, and what we wanted to do was remove all. Oh, sorry, I'll repeat the question. So he asked how we registered people being taken out of the game. So if someone was hit, how they were removed from the game and taken off the radar. So we remove all responsibility from the player that is still in the game. It's not up to them. So whoever is taken out, it's a matter of 2 clicks on the screen to take yourself out of the screen, and then also generate the post-game stats for that player. So you select the hit button on the user interface, and then immediately after that is displayed the users that were in the game, and they'll have profile pictures. You can either pinpoint exactly which player it was to designate who it was that had taken you out of the game, or we're actually working on a feature that essentially shows a screenshot of the field while you were playing, and you can select the dot relative to the location where the shot came from. So you can do that as well. So we're leaving all of the stat creation on the shoulders of the person who was taken out of the game, purely because you don't want to interrupt from that gameplay, which is another reason why we're keeping the focus on the game itself and not trying to play through the device. So, yes, sir. Thank you.